So thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, let's go over some best practices to ensure everyone has a chance to contribute. This meeting is being recorded. It will involve a short presentation and then time for comments and questions. You can participate in a variety of ways. For folks online, you can add questions in the chat throughout the meeting. Use the raise hand feature for those who wish to speak and ask questions verbally or visually. There's an option in the captioning to select other languages if you'd like, other than English. And if folks need instructions on how to do that, I'm happy to help. Please keep videos off and remain muted unless necessary to sign or speak, ensuring a consistent view for everyone. For folks attending in person, please use a microphone and mention your name when speaking. We are designating specific time at the end of the meeting for comments and questions. We value your input and really want to be sure that everyone's concerns are addressed and that you feel heard. This ADA transition plan draft is located on our website, and I will put that in our chat if you'd like to follow along. https://vtrans.vermont.gov/ADA-transition-plan-public-meeting. So let's get started. Welcome to our presentation of the Agency of Transportation's Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan. The last update to this plan was in 2020, and we're happy to present the latest update today. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Okay. Our ADA Transition Plan Work Group is made up of 5 AOT staff. I'm Patricia Martin. I'm the ADA and Title VI coordinator. And with me today is Josh Taylor, civil engineer. And online is Summer Bukosi, active transportation bicycle pedestrian coordinator. Not present is Amanda Holland, active transportation team, and Colleen Montague, civil rights director. We also have contacts throughout our agency who are data stewards collecting our progress towards compliance as mentioned in the ADA Transition Plan acknowledgements. We also received feedback from disability rights organizations and Federal Highway on this draft. We thank them for their time and consideration. Does anyone have any questions before we talk about the agenda? What we'll cover today includes discussing the ADA Transition Plan legal framework, defining an ADA transition plan, excuse me, some highlights from AOT's transition plan, and time for comments. This will be a fairly short presentation, so we'll have time at the end for feedback. So the legal framework for an ADA transition plan includes the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 504. This is a landmark civil rights law that prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities, and all programs and activities that receive federal funding, involve federal agencies, or are run by federal contractors. This is viewed as a precursor to the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and passed in 1990. Its Title II extends to state and local programs. It prohibits discrimination for people with disabilities and ensures equal access to programs, activities, and services. Combined with Section 504, both cover all areas of government. Title II requires an entity to do a self-evaluation and provide public notice of non-discrimination. For entities over 50 employees, like our agency, an ADA compliance officer should be assigned, a grievance procedure posted, and a transition plan created. As far as enforcement, the U.S. Department of Transportation through Federal Highway oversees public right-of-way, and the U.S. Department of Justice promotes compliance via Project Civic Access. The standards and guidelines that we use are through the Americans with Disabilities Act Accessibility Guidelines, which has to do with buildings and sites. The Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards, which has to do with buildings and streets. And PROAC, which we'll cover next. Any questions before I continue? All right. So PROAG stands for Public Rights of Way Accessibility Guidelines. It was developed specifically for the public right of way. Here's a little bit about PROAG's history. PROAG's notice of proposed rulemaking was issued in July of 2011. The notice to combine with shared use paths was released in February 2013. And after 10 years of public feedback, the final rule was established in September of 23. Federal Highway recommended PROAG as a best practice in 2024. PROAG is published by the Access Board. PROAG addresses accessibility for sidewalks, streets, crosswalks, curb ramps, pedestrian signals, on-street parking, and more. It includes shared use paths for bicyclists and pedestrians, focusing on transportation and recreation. PROAG ensures comprehensive accessibility in public spaces, enhancing mobility for all users. Any questions? How does AOT comply with accessibility requirements in alterations and construction? Well, Title II and Section 504, as I mentioned earlier, require that people with disabilities have an equal opportunity to participate in public entities' programs, services, and activities in the most integrated manner appropriate. So what does this mean for new construction? Well, it must have the highest level of accessibility. It must be free from movement and information barriers, and the facilities are deemed to be accessible if they apply with ADAG, UFAS, or PROAG. Cost should not be a consideration. What does this mean for alterations? Well, there needs to be flexibility to work within existing conditions. Altered portions of facilities must meet new construction requirements to the maximum extent feasible. Optimize usability of each pedestrian feature and use engineering judgment. Document decision-making is key. So let's discuss the importance of process of conducting a self-evaluation for public entities. A self-evaluation is a comprehensive review of all programs, activities, and services operated by a public entity. It helps identify areas needing improvement to ensure ADA compliance. After the self-evaluation, entities can develop a transition plan for necessary structural changes. Collaboration with departments and divisions is crucial to modify policies and procedures effectively. In the review process, the review is of all facilities, activities, and programs to determine compliance needs, identify specific departments and programs that require attention. For example, sidewalks are considered a program provided by local government. ADA awareness is essential as well. Assess whether employees are familiar with ADA obligations to provide training, regular training. The agency provides quarterly training for folks embedded throughout our agency that act as liaisons. Ensure they understand the importance of reasonable modifications to policies, practices, and procedures. A thorough self-evaluation is essential for fostering an inclusive and accessible environment, ensuring all public services meet ADA standards. So let's explore the components and importance of an ADA transition plan. The ADA transition plan is developed from a thorough self-evaluation. It basically tells the story for making programs, activities, and services successful. The plan uses the inventory from the self-evaluation with the identified work items that limit accessibility. It outlines methods for removing barriers and making facilities accessible. It includes a schedule for completing work, identifies the official responsible for implementing the plan, establishes a clear process for addressing grievances and complaints. It basically acts as a living document, evolving as needs and circumstances change, and ensure public awareness and provide opportunity for input. As Scott Winley from the U.S. Access Board once said, a self-evaluation without a plan is just a list of deficiencies that you have identified with no plan to do anything about it. The transition plan tells the story of commitment to accessibility and action. So let's introduce the key individuals leading the accessibility efforts at the Agency of Transportation, or AOT. So Joe Flynn, our Secretary of the Agency of Transportation, is the official responsible for representing AOT. AOT is responsible for ensuring compliance with ADA standards as they relate to the provision of transportation services, activities, and programs. In addition, the AOT remains committed to ensuring meaningful access and full participation by people with disabilities, while seeking to remove remaining barriers to fair and dignified inclusion for people with disabilities. So Patricia Martin, that's me, serves as the Title VI and ADA coordinator. For any ADA-related inquiries or assistance, I can be reached at the number shown on the screen, which is 802-595-6959, or email at patricia.martin@vermont.gov. With dedicated leadership, AOT is committed to fostering an inclusive and accessible environment for everyone in Vermont. So let's discuss the ADA Notice of Non-Discrimination and its significance for the Agency of Transportation. AOT receives federal funding for transportation and is required to adhere to ADA rules for all transportation services, activities, and programs. AOT is dedicated to ensuring that people with disabilities can fully participate in all aspects of transportation. The agency is actively working to remove barriers and enhance accessibility. AOT does not discriminate against people with disabilities in its programs, activities, services, or hiring practices. This commitment is in line with the ADA in Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. The ADA Notice of Non-Discrimination is a vital declaration of AOT's dedication to inclusivity and equal access for all individuals. So let's discuss how sidewalks are managed and maintained within the state highway right-of-way. The Agency of Transportation does not directly maintain sidewalks within the state highway right-of-way. Instead, AOT has maintenance agreements with municipalities to handle this responsibility. AOT constructs sidewalks and curb ramps as part of larger transportation projects, ensuring all constructions comply with relevant accessibility standards. AOT prioritizes pedestrian safety, ensuring people can walk safely through work zones. AOT adheres to several key guidelines and standards. PROAG, as I mentioned, the Public Rights-of-Way Accessibility Guidelines, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, AOT's own Work Zone Safety and Mobility Policy, the Pedestrian Access and Work Zones Standard Notes. Through these efforts, AOT ensures safe and accessible pedestrian pathways even during construction activities. So let's explore the accessibility initiatives of the Vermont Department of Motor Vehicles in the public transit section. The DMV offers free interpretation and translation services for office visits, online interactions, and phone calls. Vital documents, including the driver's manual, which was recently translated in 2023, are translated into the 14 most spoken languages in Vermont. They offer special programs like the Deaf Visor Card, which helps individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing communicate with police officers during traffic stops or emergencies. The Blue Envelope Program, which is a voluntary initiative to assist drivers with autism in communicating effectively with law enforcement. It aims to reduce stress and enhance safety during traffic stops. Public transit section of our agency does not directly operate transportation services. They oversee recipients and subrecipients, of federal funds to ensure compliance with Title VI, which is Race, Color, and National Origin Non-Discrimination, and ADA, which is Disability Non-Discrimination Standards. These initiatives demonstrate a strong commitment to accessibility and effective communication, ensuring safety and inclusivity for all individuals. So as far as facilities, let's explore a recent modification to enhance accessibility across different facilities. Rest areas and welcome centers. Modifications include replacing pavers with concrete sidewalks. This change improves accessibility and durability for all visitors. Airports, we have 10. Please note the Burlington Airport is not a state-owned airport. Enhancements include line striping and accessible parking spaces. Airport web pages will be updated with accessibility information. Ensures passengers and users are informed about available accessible features. Our district offices, which we have 9, there's 9 districts. 2 offices have been established in White River Junction and St. Albans, 2 brand new offices, that is. As far as railroads, AOT is directly responsible for facilities at 4 Amtrak stops. White River Junction and Burlington locations feature ADA compliant platforms, restrooms, waiting rooms, parking, and wheelchair lifts. These modifications demonstrate a commitment to accessibility, ensuring all users can access and benefit from these facilities. Pardon me. Let's discuss the ongoing efforts to enhance accessibility across various facilities and infrastructure. Our central garage has a new ADA accessible site that's being built due to the 2023 flood. This initiative ensures future resilience and accessibility. AOT has 2 offices, one at Berry City Place and the other, which is the Dill Building where we're at right now, are fully accessible. These offices demonstrate AOT's commitment to accessibility in its facilities. Curb ramps work is scheduled based on new construction projects and pedestrian signals. Since 2020, AOT has completed at least 28 pedestrian signals. 2 of these include new signals, enhancing pedestrian safety and accessibility. AOT has 4 rail trails and they are accessible, providing inclusive recreational opportunities. There are 33 park and ride lots that are state-owned. The goal is to preserve and improve the performance and condition of the park and ride system. AOT aims to provide safe and accessible facilities to meet the mobility needs of all users. These initiatives reflect AOT's dedication to creating an accessible and inclusive environment for everyone. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. Pardon me. Accessibility in public meetings. AOT is committed to making public meetings and materials accessible to everyone. Requests for free interpretive or translation services, assistive devices, or other accommodations should be made directly to the Title VI and ADA coordinator. That's me. As far as compliance standards, AOT complies with key accessibility standards. As I mentioned, the ADA, also the Section 508, which is the Federal Electronic and Information Technology, WCAG, which is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. These guidelines were recently updated to have a date that they will be enacted of April of 2027. The state of Vermont has a Universal Digital Accessibility Project in progress, and the agency has over 60 subject matter experts working on our website to make sure that our digital content is inclusive and accessible. Title II, which is our state and local government services. And then we have our community feedback. AOT values this feedback from organizations like the Vermont Council for Independent Living, Vermont League of Cities and Towns, Vermont Association for the Blind, and special thanks to the Department of Aging and Independent Living. Through these efforts, AOT is dedicated to ensuring accessibility, inclusivity, and all its communications and services. Anyone can file a complaint if they feel discriminated against on the basis of disability within 180 days of the alleged incident of discrimination via online form, mail, phone, or email. Complaints are investigated and resolved within 45 days of complaint submission. The link to the draft of the ADA transition plan page is in the chat. And if you use the QR code, that will bring you right to the page as well. Now we'll have time for questions and comments. We'd like to open it up for folks to either raise your hand online or raise your hand here in the room. We're happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you. Or if you'd like to put it in the chat pod, if you don't want to verbally or come off camera, you can also do that as well. We'll be able to answer your question that way. Yes, Peter. Hello. Welcome.
All the cameras on and mics, and all of that stuff. So a few things. First of all, because I and others at VCIL have been involved with the Agency of Transportation, assisting and making sure this these presentations on the transition plan are accessible and the public's informed, which is great. And just the fact I haven't seen any similar presentations from any other state agencies. I know the AHS has done a lot of work on accessibility. They just had a big accessibility conference. So there are some things going, but I just want to make the comment that I think VTrans has really made taken great strides in my mind, really being a leader in making sure these plans are available and are done in a timely way. So I appreciate that. But I do have a few questions, and I was just looking through the actual transition plan that you had put in the chat, and I note that I haven't looked through the whole thing, so maybe what I'm asking about is further down in the document, but it talks about the improvements that have been made in recent years. Does the document also include what the agency still knows it needs to do based on the self-evaluation over the next, few years?
So I'm sorry, can you repeat that question one more time? Does the agency know what it needs to do in the next few years? Is that right?
Yes, right. So I mean, in the document that I looked at the beginning, I haven't gone through the whole thing, so it may be at the end. It'll say, like, at this welcome station, we replaced the pavers, we upgraded the entrance hardware. So is there also things that, like, at this welcome station, we know we need to do X and we plan to do it by such and such a date, or whatever the other facilities may be?
Yeah, depending on the facility will depend on my answer. Generally, in the ADA transition plan, we have awareness of what needs to be done in the priority level. Sometimes we have projects that are currently going on or just finished that I can mention in the plan. Sometimes we have projects that are coming up that I can mention, but it does kind of, it's dependent on the facility. I know with the park and rides, that's kind of the way it went. I don't know if Josh wants to chime in on any other of the facilities, but we have, especially with our the welcome centers too, they've kind of gone through and itemized like which ones are going to be prioritized and needs the work, but it didn't exactly say, in March of 28, we're going to do that sort of thing. So that's why I'm saying I think it varies depending on the facility. Do you have anything to add, Josh?
I guess it depends on what needs to be done. Some programs or some projects are programmed not strictly based on ADA compliance. And when we do a project, we bring things into compliance. If there are minor things that need to be brought into compliance, that could be its own thing. Or if something is broken that should be compliant and it's broken, that can be, fixed through maintenance. So yeah, it really depends on the facility and the condition and what's currently there. But yeah, it depends on the facility. If you have specific questions on something that comes to mind, we can look into it and reach out to the right contacts to see when a project is scheduled.
So that's helpful to know, so that if I am aware of something, or if some of the people we work with are aware of some issues, we can reach out. But Patricia also just now mentioned park and rides, which is another area that I had some questions around. Now, I don't know which ones are under the control of the Agency of Transportation and which ones are under the control of towns. I know that varies.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, knowing that distinction would be helpful. If you have a list of all of them and you can say, okay, like I know the one in East Montpelier is with the town of East Montpelier, but I don't, know all the other ones. Because
Yeah.
one of the things we see, especially in the wintertime, is we still see snow in the accessible parking spaces. And so, well, okay, who do I call? Do I call this town, or do I call, VTrans, or, do I call you, Patricia? I don't know.
Anytime. Anytime. Yeah, with the park and ride list, there is a list online on our park and ride page that indicates it has the map and the list of state owned, and then the other park and rides. And then as far as the accessible parking, I know with especially with our weather, I know that can be very challenging. We do have it's my understanding that we have the snow taken care of by our district maintenance and fleet folks, and they either do the work themselves or they contract out for that. So I would highly recommend, yes, if you find that there is a park and ride in need of something, reach out to me directly. I know that's not like the way we want to operate, but I would like to know and make sure that it's taken care of if it hasn't been plowed in a while, that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And another thing regarding the park and rides, and especially with EV charging stations, and not just at park and rides, but the other thing I've noticed, and again, I don't know which ones are the responsibility of VTrans and which are the responsibility of others, and this isn't certainly all of them, but I have noticed a number of them are actually on top of a concrete pedestal that may be, 6 inches depth from, the edge of the concrete to the actual charging station. And, it's a 6 inch or sometimes higher rise, which makes them inaccessible to somebody in a wheelchair. I don't think it's an issue in Vermont, but I am aware in other states, it's also an issue along interstate highways. unfortunately, again, some of those are privately owned or contracted, so then it gets complicated about who's responsible and those kinds of things. But I just want to bring that to everybody's awareness so that they are keeping that in their mind, that you put one of these up on a little concrete block, and all of a sudden now it's not accessible.
That's a great point. Thank you.
In the transition plan appendix C, there is a list of the park and rides along with priority or information, what may need to be completed, what projects are upcoming or recently finished. So there is some information in appendix C of the ADA transition plan.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. That's all I have. I appreciate this presentation and your input.
And we'll post the comments in the final version of the plan along with our responses. I answered them here, but I want to make sure, and I'm going to be like, just reconfirming everything as we respond to these so that we have that in the plan as well. And I know snow was a factor that came up earlier today at our 2 o'clock meeting, making sure that the bus stops have been plowed and make them accessible, because sometimes they can get inaccessible after the plow goes by and the sidewalk plow. And then changes to bus schedules need to be better communicated.
This is Peter again. I'm glad you brought that up, Patricia. I had already forgotten about it because the weather's gotten really warm and stuff. But yeah, that is a really big problem, and not even necessarily just for people who are using wheelchairs, because you typically, plow goes by and now you've got this either at the curb. I mean, there's no curb cut. There isn't intended to be a curb cut there, but at the curb where the bus would pull up. So now you have this barrier of snow that may be anywhere from 2 inches to 6 inches high. And for people like myself with low vision, and in particular for me with lack of depth perception, it makes it really tricky to navigate that without misstepping and falling. And it's happened enough for me over the years that now in the wintertime, I carry a little fold up camping shovel. And I shovel my own snow out of the way if I need to.
That's a great idea. It's sad that you have to do that, but that's a great idea. I know this past winter was brutal. A lot of snow. Thank you for that. Anyone else have any comments, questions, concerns? As I mentioned, the final plan will be posted to our website along with the recordings of these 2 meetings, along with the transcript. Did you both want to add anything, or? Okay. All right. Well, with that, if there's no further questions or comments, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you so much. And as I said, we'll be posting these online. And with that, we'll end the meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good night.